the unnamed final plenary. On my notes here, what I have, what I'm giving you right now, is the intro to the outro. This is where we close things down. This is where we reflect on what we've done and who we've met. And on that basis, Andy 2 days ago asked you to greet someone you didn't know near you and tell them who you were. I'm going to ask you to do that again with the proviso that it's going to be harder now because you know each other so much. But just 2 minutes of saying hello to each other, ideally to someone that you don't know. Members of Operatio Arctis cannot talk to each other. Sorry? Are you good for the Mentimeter? I'm just going to say things and someone's going to make it happen. I'm assuming that's you. Yeah, that's okay. Just speak to me, I guess. But yeah, do you know how it works? I'm assuming it's going to be self-explanatory. Okay. If it's not, I'm going to ask you to explain it. But the slides are going to go up, right? Yes. Okay. Masa, you ready? Okay. Okay, and now I must ask you to silo yourselves again. Nice seeing the selfie taken back then. Degrees staff should stop talking to interesting people now, other than me. So this is a sort of town hall event that we're having at the end. We've inherited this format to some extent from the CEC meetings in Berlin, and they seem to serve us reasonably well. It's a time for reflection, suggestion, affection, and also some clarity, trying to think about what's happened here these last 2 days and what we want to, last 3 days, and what we want to happen in the next years, the years to come. I have a loose plan for how we might do this. As you all know, the greatest gift that the somewhat odious Mike Tyson has given to the world is the insight that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I would ask you not to punch me or anyone else in the face, but please do find ways to take over the time we have together if that's the way that things seem to be going. I will, though, in good Ted Parsons style, shut people down when I think they're not helping. I don't do that to Mike Tyson. We're going to begin, as I said, this meeting is to some extent a spiritual stepchild, I don't know, some complicated relationship with the CEC meetings, the climate engineering conferences that took place in Berlin in 2014 and 2017 and online in 2021. They were held by the IASS, the Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies, which is now part of the Helmholtz Association. And they brought together the fields of carbon dioxide removal, carbon geoengineering, and solar geoengineering, and anything that could really be seen of as engineering. They helped define what broad-based, academic and more discussion-oriented conferences in those fields could look like and could achieve. And as part of those conferences, various of us, but led by Masa Sugiyama, who is here today, suggested that it would be useful to poll the audiences there to find out a little bit about them. And this is not a scientific process. It's not remotely a scientific process, although it's done by an excellent scientist. It does not define the field. What you're going to see here does not tell you what solar geoengineering is. In fact, one of the things that I think all these conferences always remind me of is that there is no what solar geoengineering is. There is always some level of flux, and if we forget that, we're making a mistake. So it doesn't define the conference, doesn't define the field, and it doesn't define you, But it does let us compare a couple of snapshots. So we're going to look at some data which, who was good and filled in their little QR code. Yeah, well, I know that about 150 of you did, actually. So maybe, so you are responsible for the data we are about to see. And let's see who we are. Masa, take it away.
Hello? Oh, it's okay. So thanks, Oliver. So can you show the slides? Yeah. So thank you. And so I'm going to do a quick comparison between this conference and CC 2017. Yeah, and I put a lot of caveats because there are lots of social scientists and humanities scholars and also very critical scientists in the audience. So can you please go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so first let's look at who we are, and sample size, yeah, 150. And go next slide, please. So sorry for the small font, but the upper left one shows the whether who attended the previous conferences. I excluded the online one, 2021. But we had a lot of newcomers. That's good, I think. And in terms of age, basically, almost no difference between the CC 17 and this conference. If you go lower left, then the basically, oh, sorry, not the next one. Yeah. So you see the CC 17 on the left and the DGF 2025 on the right, and the blue one shows basically it's so these people are spending their 1% of their time on SRM. So that's the previous CEC covered both CDR and SRM, but so this is kind of SRM folks. And if you go lower right, basically, yeah, a lot of newcomers again. So many of you have spent only 1 year less on the topic, and yeah, that's what I observe here. And back to you, Albert.
This is an interesting, this bottom quarter one is interesting. When Andy and Masa and I were looking at this with some other people earlier, we noticed that the 06 to 10 years cohort was noticeably smaller. I'm not going to use any words like significantly, but noticeably smaller. And I was talking to various people about why this might be, and one of them was Pete Irvin from SRM 360. And if someone can give Pete a mic, he can tell us why that strange little wasp wasting of the data happens.
Yeah, well, in our funding data, and in my recollection, I remember there was quite a bit of funding for this field back in 2010, or early 2010s from governments, which then dried up in the late 2010s. So that seems to tally.
Yeah, I think this is true. It's like after Mount Pinatubo, there was a whole generation of bears in the Canadian Arctic that were nice and podgy because there'd been lots of, the environment had been very nice for them in the year after Pinatubo. And so there's a cohort of people here, and I guess I'm probably sort of one of them, though, at the older age, that of people who were fattened up by the post-Paul Crutzen, post-Royal Society funding boom of the 2010s, and that went away. It's an important reminder that funding situations really do impose themselves on the demographics of a field. Masa, show us another one.
Yeah, so more on demographics. So starting from the top, so this is where people are coming from, and naturally this is Cape Town and more Africans. That's great. On the other hand, somehow we pushed away some Europeans. And on the lower left, so yeah, it's great. We are seeing more participants from middle income and low income regions. But if you switch to the lower right, the red is basically natural science and engineering scientists, and the orange is social sciences and social scientists and humanities. And I see a drop here, and I wonder why. But yeah, would like to bring it back to you, Oliver.
We have some theories about why that might be, and I think the most important one probably is that we've been funding, degrees have been funding natural science through DMF since 2018, and we've only recently moved into social and political funding with the excellently named SPF program. But I'd be interested in other people's thoughts. Anyone who has thoughts on whether there's less interest in this area than there used to be from the social sciences and humanities, or if there's anything off-putting about coming to a meeting like this. Holly.
The first two things that come to mind are first Mark Lawrence's extraordinary commitment to transdisciplinary work, and the fact that for people who are traveling abroad, social scientists, humanities people have less funding to go to conferences, and this could be a pricey destination for some folks.
I think that's definitely true. And Mark Lawrence, who was the chair of IASS and the presiding spirit behind the CEC conferences. Yeah, over there.
Yeah, it's really more of a point of information that what these presentations of data are doing are disguising the massive expansion in the field. And so there might not have been a net drop in the social sciences participation. It's just that we've relatively added perhaps more of the hard sciences into the mix. And I think that's certainly true in terms of like other tests of like the Europeans. I don't think the Europeans have been forced out necessarily. It's just that we've added in a lot of people from the global south, which is obviously a good thing, better representation, right?
Also, the Europeans found it easier to get to Berlin than Cape Town. I mean, I think the funding is real. And also there were people, there still are people who are interested in the whole idea of human interference with transformation of the Earth system who, you know, might not be so interested in a pure SRM conference. So it's something to bear in mind, and I think Andrew's point that it might be, that it might reflect a change in the field. We'll come back to some of that in some of the later slides. Oh, please.
Well, I would think that in the political and science and economics, of course, the field is seen as risky. So I would think that not many people from the mainstream are willing to stick their neck out to come to such an event.
Does that ring true with you, Hugh?
I don't think I can comment on that. But
Okay.
But I think just looking around here compared with CEC 14 and 17, there are many more engineers here than there used to be.
Cool. Let's have another slide.
Sure. So yeah, this shows the gender balance, and well, let's skip the discussion on gender. so this was the joke I made back in 2017, and you know, coming from Japan, which is notorious for gender imbalance. So I really see this as a problem, but yeah, that the joke didn't go well. So.
Well, we'll come on to this later, but I think we are definitely on track to have a gender balance conference before we have net zero, according to the...
I'm sure about it, yeah.
But I'd be very interested in people who have experience of what you might think of as similar sorts of fields. Is there something more that these conferences or this community could be doing about the gender balance? So, for instance, there's agriculture and climate change meetings. There are meetings on all sorts of things, sort of like subgroups of climate change. Is there something particularly off-putting or indeed particularly attractive about this? Does anyone want to put forward a rash hypothesis on the subject? Oh, a rash hypothesis.
So two things I think are, one thing that is attractive about this topic is also why I actually came into it, is that you can be a natural scientist, but also be interested in the social science because it's such a broad topic. And I think you can be really either one of them if you really want to talk about solar radiation management. And also an ID, if you want to have more female people in the field, then maybe the funders in the room could actually have actual funding more for female researchers, such that next time it's more balanced.
Anyone want to follow up on that? That's the first round of applause we've had, so that's very exciting. Let us move on. Let's hope that in a while we will be able to show a better version of that slide.
Yeah, sure. So from here, it's about the perception. So we asked a number of questions about what people think about the SRM or climate change, and this shows the likelihood of achieving 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees. And then you see on the left, you see the likelihood for 1.5 degrees target, and the middle one, it's for 2 degrees. So I think there are some slight changes, and it's interesting that the very likely the red color, it has increased somewhat. I don't know why, but it's yeah. And but I think for 2 degrees there could be a reason, because as David Keith talked about in the plenary, the decarbonization is happening and accelerating, and we have some hope, but not necessarily for 1.5 degrees.
I'd be interested. Is there anyone, and I'll come to you, Luke. Is there anyone who would like to say that they are in the red? I am somewhat colorblind, but the top bit, the reddy, vaguely ochre-y, sandy bit. The people who might think that their expectation of staying below 2 degrees C without any SRM that's increased over the past, say, 10 years. Is anyone who would like to speak in that category? People who think that in 2017 they thought, yeah, there's not really a good chance of staying under 2, and now they think there is a good chance. Okay. Oh, Axel.
Well, since 2017, we've seen quite a progress in climate governance internationally. We've seen the NDCs, we've seen net zero targets, we've seen renewable energy really push, we've seen the global stocktake at the Dubai conference, which sets fairly straightforward stuff. So I would think, yes, there is a reason why we see a significant shift. Of course, still many people don't believe in it, but I think there is more reason that this could happen.
Let me press. Have you personally changed your priors on that?
Yes, I didn't believe that countries like Saudi Arabia and Nigeria would put net zero targets.
David?
I mean, I think I used the airtime to say it yesterday, but I think my guess about where the median temperature has gone down quite a bit in the last 5 years because of the extraordinary progress in decarbonization and some of the things like Saudi. So yeah, my percentage chance of getting to under 2 would have gone up for sure.
It's interesting. I mean, I often use the lines I used in the first plenary from Paul Crutzen about the pious hope, but maybe we don't have to be quite so pious. Luke?
Again, dumb balloon guy, but we're at 1.5 degrees now. How can someone explain to me how much carbon we're pulling out of the air by Saudi Arabia making a promise to someday maybe hit net zero and the US shredding the Paris Climate Accord agreements? Like, am I crazy, or is this wishful thinking and frankly irresponsible as leaders in a field that can do something about it?
Anyone feel irresponsible? Nodding over the, I'm sorry, you nodded, so I'm going to pounce on you, Victor. Can we get Victor a mic? All the mics seem to have gone over into what I'm thinking of as noon to 3 o'clock, the very small hours of the morning.
Yeah, I agree on this one. We're going to see increasing CO2 levels in the atmosphere until we get to net negative emissions. And so if we see net negative emissions in 2100, that means we're going to be at a very much higher temperature in 2100 than today. I think it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I want to reassure everyone, I have not actually been sharing the slides with Operatio Arctis, but we will come back to this issue. Todd?
Yeah, I am not overly optimistic, but I lean more in the direction of David Keith. I think that there has been absolutely spectacular progress on the green transition in terms of technology in the last 8, 10, 12 years, which I think is enormously important. I think that's going to keep barreling on even despite the disaster in the United States right now. I think there's also powerful sources and powerful political economy, political economy with respect to leadership in governments and the fossil fuel industry. So I wouldn't bet a lot of money that we're gonna stay below 2, but I think we might, and I think we'll be relatively close. And I think that this progression in terms of the green technology is going to keep moving. So I think I'm not optimistic, but certainly a lot better than I would have been.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I have no idea whether you're a betting man, but is it the stakes or the odds that are the issue here? I wouldn't bet a lot of money, but I don't think I'd bet any money at 50-50. But you might.
I don't think I would bet money on it, but I think we are moving in a much better direction and not fast enough, which is partly the reason why this kind of exercise that's going on here is relevant.
And to be fair to David's talking about a direction of travel, not about the end result. I'm going to go over there because I'm being gestured at to go over there, and then I will come over there.
I was, I think, 18 or 19 when the first. So I didn't answer the first poll, but I do think that it's more likely than 5 or 10 years ago. The idea that we can reach 2 degrees. Also, there is a lot of difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees. I think people sometimes underestimate the amount of carbon that goes in between the two targets. Not this crowd, of course, but at the same time, the climate risk, the additional climate risk in between 1.5 and 2 degrees, in the same amount of time where we got more optimistic about reaching the mitigation target, we got much more pessimistic about the climate effects of 2 degrees, which 10 years ago were considered semi-not there, but by at least some people.
Right. So, yeah. That's a good point. Yes, that has a strong 1 step forward, 2 steps back feel. Sarah?
I guess I would just like to remind that this is not just about greenhouse gases. We believe that right now that aerosols are cooling climate by about 0.5 degrees C, and that effect is declining and potentially declining rapidly. So even if this was possible through greenhouse gas mitigation, which I don't believe is realistic myself, but if you throw the aerosol declines that are happening, we're seeing that's going to rapidly add warming to the 1.5 that we're effectively already at. So let's keep that in mind.
That's a very, yes. And if we don't keep it in mind, Jim Hansen will jump into our email inboxes and remind us of it anyway. Let's have another slide.
Sure. So that was about the temperature target. Now options. So timing of a net negative, or actually how CDR and the combination of CDR, carbon dioxide removal, and emissions reduction, and SRM. So the top one shows the timing of the net negative emissions and with the emissions reduction and carbon dioxide removal, and the lower one is basically when the SRM will be first deployed as a countermeasure of climate change. And there's some basically CDR is a net negative. It's basically pushed up a bit later, and SRM earlier.
Okay, this is one that I was thinking about when Victor was speaking. People are at the same time maybe slightly more optimistic about 2 degrees, but they're also putting net negative off to the very end of the century. I would slightly suspect, I think you could make an argument, if you were Luke, that this is evidence of wishful thinking, that when asked the same question in 2 different ways about the ways and the means, people give slightly different answers. Does anyone would anyone like to speak to the idea that carbon removal is being underplayed by this audience. I mean, and we should also bear in mind, of course, there were carbon removal people at the meeting in Berlin, and there are no one attending for that purpose here. But does anyone think that the community is getting less realistic about carbon dioxide removal? So I can't tell, was that a hand or? No, it wasn't. It was a scratch, wasn't it? Yes, okay.
I just want to object to your characterization of most people in 2025 looking to the very end of the century. If you look at the two big bars in the middle that probably account for 50%, it's in the range of 2040 to 2069, which is not the end of the century.
Okay, am I just misreading it? I think that the big bars in the middle are 2070 to 2089.
Am I misreading it?
Yeah, I think everything that's on the whitey to bluey sort of like.
I'm looking at the bottom chart. Am I supposed to be looking at the top chart?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So I created complicated enough. Yeah, sorry for that.
I wonder if I could hear, is there anyone who's not been to one of these meetings before who'd like to say, because I've hugely enjoyed the contribution so far, but I have, and possibly in a way that slants the discussion, referred to many of them by name because I've known them for a while. Is there anyone else who would like to speak who we're not hearing from yet at the moment? Yes.
May have these technologies in place and efforts that are being put across in pocketed ways, I would say, because I don't think so it's happening all across the world in all countries at the same rate that is required. And of course, there was a remark before, at the pace at which we need the removals to happen, I don't think so we're reaching those levels. So as a result, we would be, I personally feel we would be crossing the 2 degrees. And of course, all these then basically connect accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So in fact, I want to go with that one, what is 70 to 89. That is the time what we have taken already to mitigate, and also the disruptive technology are coming. So what I believe, there are new engines being designed which may be used in the industrial processes what we're using in industries nowadays. So those engines to come by 2045 or 2050, then I think a drastic reduction may happen. That is what I think.
Cool. Matthias.
Thanks. I think we're looking at a combined statement about mitigation overall, or emissions reductions and removals. That said, and definitely on that overall, I think optimism has waned when we look at this. But perhaps on the CDR front, I think in 2017, this was very much, with a few notable exceptions, I'm looking at David, for example, this was very much an academic question. Whereas today, CDR is actually kind of sort of a growing business, or perhaps at the moment no longer growing for political reasons. And those political reasons might actually contribute to the less optimistic statement here. But I think the selection of people answering this question is also important, because right now we sort of lost perhaps all the social scientists and economists and engineers to the CDR world, which is now very much a separate and kind of booming again in an academic sense world, but it's perhaps less represented here.
I'm going to keep with people who I haven't heard from yet, though, but please do keep the hands coming. Olaf.
I just had an observation about the two together, and if people consider SRM a stopgap technology as a temporary measure, it's relevant to think about what the expectations are for net zero or net negative, and when that might happen, and what the definition then of temporary would look like, what the range of temporary would look like. I think it's quite long term probably, and others believe that it's not going to be a temporary, like my neighbor Shin has argued, that this would be a permanent thing if started. So I find that interesting.
Alan.
I wanted to go back for a minute to the previous question about how much warming we're going to get. The warming depends on the forcing, the CO2 and aerosols, but also the sensitivity of the climate system. And you mentioned Jim Hansen. Jim Hansen has pointed out that the system probably is more sensitive than we thought it was, that clouds are a positive feedback. We got to 1.5 degrees sooner than we thought, and we might get to 2 degrees sooner than we think because the system is more sensitive than we thought it was.
Were you nodding in a way that wanted to add to that, or were you?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I also feel, 2 degrees is probably much earlier we'll be reaching, and what I feel realistically maybe 3 degrees Celsius is what we are heading to if we go with the current trajectory.
And behind you we have.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think your question might need to be a little bit more specific, because if you're talking about carbon dioxide emissions, are you talking about anthropogenic, or are you talking about, including the biospheric? And the measure we have at the moment is parts per million went up by 4 parts last year, highest rate ever of increase. So anyone who's kind of thinking 1.5 is still within reach does really need to think about this question of the biosphere's response and the sensitivities, as we discussed.
That's a very good point. I did mean to say at the beginning of this, but I will. We are very aware that these questions are not necessarily as well phrased or well posed as they should have been when we first wrote them, or as they should be for now. But that is a very good, important caveat. Luke, quickly.
If anyone has a physically possible way to achieve net negative global emissions by 2100, please follow up with me afterwards. Václav Smil's How the World Really Works would quite quantitatively argue that it is physically impossible to do so.
Okay, I think this is about this point in almost any climate meeting. There should be a klaxon that goes off for the first mention of Václav Smil. David.
I think there's been implicit framing here that one's view about SRM might be strongly contingent on one's view about when we're going to get to it. You didn't say that, but I see Masa nodding.
What is there? I wasn't quite sure whether there was.
Assumption in the conversation that somehow our view about SRM, let me just say, I think my view about whether or not, my personal view about whether or not SRM, would I vote for it or against it, how I think about it, is quite independent of exactly what this trajectory is, in the sense that it's really about what my guess is about the environmental harms and benefits of SRM. And those, I don't think are that much different in a world that peaks at 2 degrees with SRM or a world that peaks with 3. So in terms of thinking about SRM, I think it's pretty independent from this question, for me anyway. But I think probably not for others. I'd like to hear from them.
I think that's a that's a good point. Your neighbour there, but I just want to say, I think there may actually be an artifact that these questions were designed for a conference which was discussing solar geoengineering and carbon geoengineering. And so we may have sort of like built that parallelism into this without thinking about it in the fine way you just did. But, please.
I think I agree strongly with that statement. I think whether we do geoengineering should be independent of what's already being locked into the system. But what should be considered is the overall future trajectory, possible trajectories, not on the decade or 2-century timescale, but really into the future and possible on the time scale of the lifetime of the CO2 gas, right? The 3 exponential decay up to, say, 10,000 years timescale potentially. So I think what happens in the next decade shouldn't be what's deciding.
Cool. Masa, let's go on.
Sure. So that was about the deployment. It's now about field experiments. So the upper one shows the timing again about the field experiments. Sorry, I thought I swapped. Sorry, I did so. The above one, the upper one is about the climate response test, so really large scale test, and the lower one is about basically the field test, the small scale field test. And if you look at it, basically the red or orangish colors have expanded. So the respondents thought this time around the timing SRM should be earlier. Yeah. Okay,
on this, I'm very interested in hearing from from almost anyone, but maybe not from the people we've already heard from. I'd be particularly interested, though, in anyone who thinks they've changed their mind about this in the last 10 years. If they think that they used to think that field trials of field experiments on SRM would be further away and that they've come closer. Anyone think that? Anyone think that ARIA's actually going to do some things, which that was very much what they said this morning? Morgan.
Well, it's funny you say 10 years ago, because I was very much working on climate and climate mitigation 10 and 15 years ago, but 2.5 years on this SRM field. And it's sort of building off the former point, but I think that the actual disasters that governments are dealing with on the ground is a forcing mechanism here. And to me, that is the fulcrum by which these timelines will change, is how much of an existential risk governments are feeling. And I think that the disasters that we have seen in the past couple of years are reaching that level of significance for governments that are pushing and driving this conversation and driving the possibility of climate response tests.
Anyone from the Global South care to comment on this question? Adam.
It seems like, from what I've seen the last 2 years or so, the insurance industry is going to be more influential than governments in influencing a lot of this stuff.
Okay, go on. Okay, that's just strong agreement. Cool. We'll move on to slide 10. I don't think we're going to necessarily... Oh, hang on. I didn't see you there, Sean.
So, pardon my ignorance if I'm interpreting the bottom chart incorrectly. But the bottom chart on the right-hand side, to me, says that half of the people here don't think that the ARIA program, which involves outdoor experiments, should be going ahead in the next 5 years. Have I got that wrong? This is when should process studies involving outdoor experiments should be started. Have I got that wrong?
No, I think you have. I think you have that right. That's right, isn't it?
That's my reading. Yeah.
That is interestingly brought out. Someone's behind me. Apparently, I keep seeing people pointing at people behind me. There you are. Yes.
I mean, they've obviously already started in the Great Barrier Reef, so that's how many people haven't realised that. In fact,
that is a very useful fact check that possibly I should have drunk more coffee this morning.
It's unusual, actually, that less people now think they should. I mean, back at the CEC, I don't think they had started in the Great Barrier Reef, and now less people think that they should happen. They have actually started in that time.
I wonder also whether we're seeing a bias in the field that people are, and I know this is a horrible thing to contemplate, slightly discounting MCB. I think that's another possible reading of that. Should we go on?
Sure. So more on the SRM, and to what extent do you agree or disagree? And we should we should use SRM when it's possible. And slight more preference. They compared to the CEC 17, we see more preferences toward SRM. So like Oliver and I said, CEC 17 was sort of the conference about both CDR and SRM. So maybe this could be a self-selection effect.
Okay, I'm going to because I'm allowing myself to rabbit on too long. Let's move on to the next one, because this one is really interesting to me in terms of the balance. Because the people at this conference really seem to want more of everything, and I find that really quite interesting. And particularly, I think Holly, you talked about Mark's stress on transdisciplinary research. Maybe this means that there was enough of it at CEC 17 and there's not enough of it here. But it's very clearly the case that despite, or because, a lot of the people at this conference are working in the natural sciences, there's clearly a very strong sense of wanting to hear from all sorts of disciplines. Does anyone want to make a transdisciplinary or discipline-based comment on that? Or shall we move on to talking? Oh, we have one. Oh, yes, Claudia.
Actually, I wanted to comment about the previous slide that you jumped, about the one, should we do SRM as soon as it's feasible? And I think that's a strange way to pose the question, because
I think that's
we should think about whether we want SRM before we make it feasible.
For various reasons, including the use of the infamous first-person plural and the rather vague word feasible. That is indeed one of the reasons why I skipped over that, but it is a very good point. And shall we take the last one?
So this is the last one, and so we asked about what we should be doing. Well, maybe I should avoid the we, but the SRA governance action is to be expected in the next 5 years, and slightly less preferences for band and more for international framework.
I think this may also be an example of the CDR people not being in the room anymore. But you could take it as evidence of a new polarization. I actually find it slightly surprising, because I find that I talk to people more interested in bans and moratoria than they used to be. Does anyone have any particular things to throw in on that? Or shall we move to the next bit, which you actually get to play with, in which your opinions are made real and manifest in real time? Masa, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Oliver.
Okay, we now have a device called Mentimeter. Can we have a slide, please? Oh, there is all you lovely people. Right, Mentimeter. Point at the QR code or use the URL and 43028087. Which is half the number on my bank card. I am not doing this, but if anyone's finding this difficult, please let us know, and we'll try and do some real-time troubleshooting. But are people getting the thing that do people seem to be having the, yes? Oh, I have a thumb up from Jesse, that's always a good sign. So shall we go on? I believe we have a first Mentimeter slide, it says here. One word to describe the conference. Now, yes, please put in the word that you want, but remember what single words are a tricky thing. There's a famous story, well, it's not famous, it's just a story that Andy Parker knows and enjoys, that in the 1990s, John Major asked Boris Yeltsin, could you describe the Russian economy in one word? And he said, cool. And John Major said, well, what if it's in 2 words? And he said, not cool. So more words are useful, but I'm doing, oh, it's very exciting. I'm assuming that we can't do real-time mood analysis on this, but yeah. That all looks quite nice and looks fairly strongly in the cool side of things. Anyone care to tell us something about the conference in slightly more than one words about their general feeling of what's gone on? And I want to go here for people who were not at CEC 17 or CEC 14. I want to go for people who are new to this conference and not judging it by something else. Yes.
I'm having fun and learning a lot, but I'm also very, very tired.
Okay.
I'm ready for my bed.
Okay. Question about that?
The response was requested to be only one word. Then that is excellent.
Well, that's very kind. But in this part, you are allowed to go on to more words. We will have a few more opportunities for saying things. Yes, over there.
Thank you. My name is Lulu Hayenga. I'm a state consul from Nairobi, Kenya. All the Kenyans in the house? All the Kenyans, thank you. Okay, for me, I have attended many meetings. I'm an international environmental lawyer. I'm here to learn so that we understand that this ends up being decided by policymakers and lawyers. The opinion I'm giving is my own because I am here to learn. I've attended many international environmental conferences, and this is one of the best I have ever attended. I've found a lot of you scientists to be wonderful people. If I offended anyone, please forgive me. I love all the attention that you have given us. I think that whether we have different ideas towards the subject matter, it is a matter of enlightenment. And I think with enlightenment, we'll probably come to more convergence. I'm thankful that I have the microphone, and I know that most of you are probably more suited to answer this question, but I had to just give my honest opinion and my honest feeling. I think every moment, I'm just recovering from bronchitis. Every moment that I've had at this conference, I felt valued. I felt whatever opinion that I'm given. By the way, most of you are professors as well, and I kind of respect you. Kind of, sort of, yeah. But you've inspired me. It's like we're in action, a historic moment. I'm very grateful to each of you. I'm very grateful to my country for allowing me to participate. I'm very grateful to Degrees Forum. I'm very grateful to you, David, and to the movie stars, the guy with the mohawk and Andrew. I'm very grateful to all of you. I'm very, very grateful, and I love that you've given me a hope, okay? I know that it is polarized. I know that some of you are for, some of you are against, but you have included people who are not usually in this space, and that is my feeling, and I'm just very grateful for this is what humanity is about. So as I said, I'm giving my own opinion. Also very grateful to meet you two gentlemen to my left and you two ladies to my right. You two to the front. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was very moving, and I now want to, in a real spirit of openness, and not just in a sort of like follow that spirit of openness, bamboozling, patriarchal, frustrating, all came up in that. Would anyone care to speak to? Actually, I'm particularly interested in bamboozling, but do not feel that you have to reach it out. I am interested that that was a word used, and I'm interested that the word frustrating is one that was used. I think that all of us have enjoyed and been frustrated by conferences like this. All of us who've been to many of them have had that experience many times. We're now doing one word for what you want more of. But we seem to have skipped a couple of slides. But this is fine. This is good. I like this. Now, I'm intrigued. I suppose we sort of meant one word for what you want more of from a conference like this. But, you know, so while this is more transdisciplinarity, more African food, I'm interested in the one that seems to be sitting, I have no idea how the algorithm works, that seems to be sitting in the middle, collaboration. Has anyone found a future collaborator here and would like to talk about that? Oh, come on, we really, really must. There must be someone you've met who you think, I want to work with that person. Ignacio.
Thank you very much. I found tons of collaborators, future collaborators here. I cannot even make a list, but every people that was talking as a potential collaborator, we had really deep interchanges. So I'm amazed about this conference. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were too tired to ask any more questions.
I am, but I'm really excited because I met another anthropologist here, and yeah, I think it's the second anthropologist I've met that works on SRM. That's not me, so that's really exciting.
Okay, one of the ones that's bubbling around here and is very important, I think, is inclusivity. Would someone like to talk a bit about how we could make a meeting like this more inclusive? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Nkosinathi Kambule from South Africa. So the change I would love to see, a lot of 101s in the breakaway sessions, because really most of the sessions I couldn't really understand the technical stuff. Thank you.
So one-to-ones?
No, 101s.
Oh, 101s,
yeah, the
right,
beginner's
okay.
course, yes.
Okay, that would certainly be something that we could do about. Frank?
I would have liked to see longer and more poster sessions, because I think the poster sessions are great to really talk with people and learn new things, and I think it's easier in those than sort of in the more plenary and even in the sort of rooms. I think posters are really fantastic, and I only managed to go through perhaps half the posters, so perhaps that's just because I'm slow.
I think that probably is the case, but general feeling, posters, more... Yeah, okay, there's a lot of thumbs up. I'll come to Bryony first, but you first.
Very quick addition. So maybe arrange the posters in a circle, so that, because I noticed a distribution of the density of people from between row to row, and by the last one, there's nobody there.
That is true. It was sort of like a diffusion cascade, wasn't it? That sort of like people, you know, to get to, yeah, I only got to the last row today. Yes?
Not to harp on posters, but in a very real sense, a conference that has more oral sessions prioritizes the voices of the PIs and the senior scientists. One with more poster sessions prioritizes the voices of the junior researchers.
That is a very good point. Yes. Give Sam a round of applause. Oh, sorry, Bryony.
That's okay. Thanks, Oliver. Just a few thoughts. One, it would have been, I think, really nice to have had some white space in the agenda that wasn't just the breakouts, but to allow a kind of unconference element. So if a problem comes up that there's a lot of people want to work on together, there's a space in the agenda to perhaps do some working sessions together and start the collaborations you want to see. And I think that there's definitely something about the way that you structured the breakouts. Like it seemed a little bit confusing as maybe some more coordination. Like the 101s is a great idea. Like make that a track that you could then follow.
We discussed having unconference elements, and partly we just had so many excellent things we wanted to do that we could, but maybe we should set aside more time for that. Should we do this again? Yes, you, sir.
I'd like to see greater representation of Indigenous stakeholders in this. I'm not sure if there are any here, but I don't think that there's many, and it's often hard, you know, in terms of financing and things. So I think for the next one, that's something that maybe the organisers could offer as a travel fund and financial support to get Indigenous stakeholders here.
That's a good point.
Ollie, behind you.
Oh, yeah, I've got one over here, but I can hear you, Andrew, with the eyes and back of my head.
It's in a similar vein as the previous speaker. I would have loved more views from the South. There were some African views, but not so much from Latin America or Asia. And well, I think that's part of Degree's work, but still not hearing them loud.
Okay. Oh, yes?
Yeah, one super simple thing. I don't want to be like mean to anyone.
I'm not entirely sure your mic's on. Oh, yep.
Okay. Just for the native English speaker, which is most of the people, I think it would be very useful if you could sometime remember to speak a little bit more slowly, because there's some people that might not, like, depending on your level, sometimes it's like, yeah, especially the British. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry,
no, I am. Don't worry. Don't worry. I was already taking it personally before you added that last bit. It is a very nicely made point. British person, speak slowly.
Okay.
I would like to see more undergraduates and high school students invited to conferences like this, because we'll all be dead before it gets serious, but they won't.
Okay. I think there's some debate about death and timings there, but it's an interesting point. But people do come to these conferences. I'm going to push back slightly. People come to these conferences to meet potential collaborators. How would you see, and does anyone know of any good conferences where there is a real presence of undergraduates and high school students that's useful? Someone is being pointed at, and I'm not seeing them.
Jesse.
Oh, right, it's Sam again.
At the most recent American Meteorological Society conference that I attended, there were not a huge concentration, but a substantial number of undergraduate posters. These were students who had gone through REU programs. I believe there's the NSF REU program in the United States. I don't know how that would translate to other contexts, but it's a great example in the American context.
That's very, of course, AMS much larger than us. Yes, Ignacio.
International Association of Bioethics, it has some mentoring program, I would call it. So you select a few promising undergraduates and you bring them here. So you're starting like the next generation, kind of. Not yeah, just.
Thank you.
It's not undergrad, but I think we should not make China as an elephant in the room. I think it's when we talk about SIM, I think we need to have more serious engagement with Chinese and delegates. I mean, it's great to see like a lot of like U.S. former delegates and like policymakers, but I think I remember like in the Josh Horton like the great piece about China and the U.S. It will be only the two countries who can which can like deploy the unilateral SIM. So I think in the future we should have a lot of more engagement Chinese people.
Okay, yes? No, here. Yeah.
Oh, it's working? Yeah. Hi. I'm Maria Inés Carabajal from Argentina. I think that a good example could be the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress, it's SRI. This event provides funding for indigenous communities, policymakers, and climate activists. So I think that maybe could be a role model to follow if you want to be, or if you want to gather people from a diversity of countries, disciplines, and sectors of society.
Thank you. Yes?
I would caution against making this thing too big. I think smaller conferences are often a lot more interesting than bigger ones.
Oh, no, you were stretching. Okay, someone is pointing at someone. I'm getting really bad. Okay, there we are.
So I would just like to say maybe a little more participation from the Middle East and North Africa, and I've spoken to Andy about how that might happen, but I want to draw attention to that one slide where we saw very strong collective thinking around the question of what SRM governance action would you like to see most in the next 5 years, and it's one of the only areas in those slides where we see collective thought instead of individual thought, and that was all about the international framework. So some of the participants, we had participants here that spoke about that. Maybe you could have one day where you open up to more participation from policy, or that discussion could be more on the table.
Great. Now, do we have the other Mentimeter slide? Oh, Cynthia.
Yeah, I'd like to see more representation from the cultural and arts sectors, because culture is such an important driver of politics. I think there was some at CEC 2017, but not so much here.
Okay. I'm going to go on. We have another, which we may have to rush through. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm not going to cut off Romeric.
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing to me to raise this issue, but it's kind of, I felt a bit as a non-English speaking person from Africa, I felt a bit forgotten by this conference from the point of view that from all the panel session we have, all Africans that were representing us were all English-speaking people, while the others that also have, we have also a very large community of French-speaking participants, but we find none of them representing the continent in the different panel, in the discussion we have. So we can only have perspective from our colleagues from English-speaking countries. We also want to see some of the French-speaking upstairs speaking their broken English and laugh a bit of it, and also so on. Yeah. For the future session, I think something needs to be done towards that to make sure that every community is very well represented. Yeah.
That's a very, very useful thought. Thank you. So now we have, and we're going to do these quite quickly because I'm going to keep you a little bit over time, but not a lot over time. These are, your Mentimeter is now allowing you to say best things about the conference, but particularly, it's allowing you to vote up the things that you particularly like rather than just adding your own things. And I have no idea what it's doing now, but I'm sure that's... One of the great things about the modern world is the number of ways machines can tell you that they're not doing anything. Okay, if only one person has voted so far. Okay, no, now you're getting it. But I'm happy while we're voting to have a few... there we go. Networking, popular. Can we break that down at all? Okay, that looks good. So I take it that some sort of large language model is sorting out these ideas and putting them into lumps. Can we try then the same thing with what you want next time? I think this may, is this the same slide? Oh no, good. Was that gold? Sorry? I'm not going to be relying on this machine to keep conversations going on for too long. Too little time, outdoor activities, poster sessions, and women. Let's break down outdoor activities. Does that mean, what does that mean? That actually means sightseeing, does it? Risk versus risk assessment is not an outdoor activity. Or, I mean, it can be, but, you know. Okay. Right, we will crunch these numbers more, but we're now going to have some straightforward, a straightforward piece of voting. Would you tell a colleague in the field to come to the next global forum? I must. We'll come to that. This is a sort of like idealized next forum rather than a specific one. We have not quite hit the North Korean standards of democracy that we were hoping for, but that's pretty good. And now we have an important question. We don't know. We are very committed to being able to hold another forum like this. We don't know where. And Okay. The idea is we can go to Latin America or to Asia. I mean, this is the advantage of being at the southernmost tip of the world, of one of the world's greatest continents. We can go west or east. We can go up. And for those of you who are a little puzzled by the number one option, there is a total eclipse of the sun that will be visible from the eastern Mediterranean in 2027. Not necessarily from, I mean, in fact, not from Istanbul, but that's the idea. So that's basically north. No. That is, I mean, basically go west or east from South Africa, go north from South Africa, or stay in South Africa. And we are in no way promising to be bound by the results of this, but we wanted to get a sense of what you were thinking. It's clear that the eclipse lovers are either voting often or first or both. Right, thank you very much for the Mentimeter, and thank you very much for making the Mentimeter happen. I'm going to now, I would like to hear more voices from you all. Among other things, it's been wonderful to have policymakers here as well as scientists and researchers and interested people. I would love to have a whole session on this. I'm going to ask Gladys González to say just a few words as a senator from Argentina. She will need a microphone for this purpose.
Thank you. My English is not very good, but I will try. Marcus, help me. First, I want to say thanks for inviting me. Thanks at Emmett Institute, especially Juan Pablo Escudero and Ted Parson. I say too that this forum is the good thing because the scientists, the degree, the organizations invite and want to listen the South, the people the South, the make and politician the South. And it's good, but it's not enough. Florencia proposed more researchers, Latinoamericanos, more policy makers, Latinoamericanos, and listen, really listen. And I think that I am part or member the system politics. And I believe in the international system. It's imperfect, yes. It's not enough, yes. But it's the unique. And this system built the rules. And I think that the good example was the Protocolo de Montreal. In that moment, the government and scientificos and NGOs building the consensus. The moment was important. And I think that this example, I feel hope that now building this consensus. But I believe in the countries, or I say that I am seeing the progress in the renewable energy, in the science around nature and the solution of nature. I see in my country, in different sector, productive sector, the effort is a reality. This advance is in 10 years, 50 years, Pascal say the same. And I see in my country and in different countries. And maybe I am optimist and maybe romantic, maybe I believe in humanity. This cause is the cause more important for humanity, is the big challenge. But I don't think this solution without all together, North and South, and in this international system. For this reason, I ask you patience, no anxiety, more research, more certainty. No, I have this forum with a lot of doubts. And one thing more, you scientists, no all this you is agree, because some say me is necessary more research in the laboratory, more investigation, social, ethical, more model, and others say me now is we prepare is yet because can to investigation or research in the air outside, and well, you first building the consensus between you, because if you not consensus, imagine the politician, please.
Gladys, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to finish off with a few announcements and a few thanks. The first announcement is one that we're very, very happy about, even though the occasion for it is very, very sad. A couple of years ago, as many of you know, we lost our friend Saleemul Huq, and he was a great man. He was the director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development. He was a man so committed to the cause that at the time of his dying, he had been to every COP there had ever been. I don't know if there's anyone else. I don't know if there's any other statement that one could make for devotion to talking to people and listening to people and urging action on people. He was absolutely tireless. It was entirely right that he was listed in 2022 as one of the 20 most influential people working on climate change. There are whole bits of climate change thinking that Saleem touched and changed. He was a tireless advocate for the South. He was unafraid of controversy, and Degrees was truly honored to have him on our board. And I and my other trustees were very lucky to have him as a colleague. Saleem was a champion of research in the Global South, and particularly of young researchers, and we've taken that enthusiasm into account in deciding to honor his memory by presenting the Saleemul Huq Award for the best oral or poster presentation by an early career researcher from the Global South. The prize for this is either a fully funded trip to next year's Gordon Research Conference on Climate Engineering in Maine, or to next year's GeoMIP conference, which will be in Japan. And it says in my notes here, or the mystery box, but I think that's a fib. I think it's just the two conferences. So we'd like to thank the judges who made it, I assure you, all the way to the back wall of the poster room and all the way back front and deliberated and cogitated. And they were Elspeth Spence from Cardiff University and Heri Kuswanto from ITS Indonesia. And I'd also like to acknowledge that this award really should be being presented by my fellow trustee, Mofaz Rahman of PIC, a dear friend of Saleem's, someone who's felt his loss even more keenly, much more keenly than the rest of us, but he is unfortunately unable to be with us. So that honor falls to me. And the winner is, and at this point on an irritating television program, you would have lots of close-ups of worried people, but I'm going to tell you the winner is Trisha Patel. Trisha, where are you? Thank you very much indeed. No, I'll come back to you. You'll be hearing a little bit more from Trisha in just a moment. I'm now going to do a little bit of housekeeping because purely coincidentally, we had already decided that Trisha was going to say the last words of the conference before, so it's not a fix. It just looks like a fix. But it's up to me just to say the final thank yous. Not just. It's actually great to say the final thank yous. To our lead supporters, the LAD Climate Fund and the Quadrilateral Climate Foundation. To our major supporters, the Center for Future Generations, providers of drinks, GeoMIP, ARIA, the UCLA Emmett Institute, the University of Chicago Climate Systems Engineering Initiative, and the African Climate Research Hub at UCT. Thank you all very much. Thank you all to our partners who are listed up there. They made an enormous difference in helping people come, helping us get the word out. Many people from the partners served on various different committees. It was really a work of many, many hands. More hands from volunteers from all around the place who helped us do these things and bring them together. Thanks to the Century City Conference Center, which did not volunteer, but has been very nice to us, and to CMC, the organizing company, Yvonne Brown and her team, and to the excellent people at the multimedia company. To our host, the University of Cape Town. To all the speakers, all the listeners, all the people who genuinely believed that talking to each other over coffee was the most important thing they could do, and it may have been right. So thank you all to the speakers and to everyone else for coming. And thank you to the Degrees staff, especially in policy engagement, Anita and Marcos. Please stand. Yes. In communications, Haley and Nick. In logistics and execution, which is not as dire as it sounds, Hannah, Grace, and Victoria. And Anna Baldwin. And particularly to our contractor who worked as the conference organizer tirelessly, who listened to Andy telling him what was going wrong more than even the rest of us did, and who, unlike the rest of us, is not going to go home and not have to worry about a conference another year or two, but is going to go straight on to organizing another one, and who, I should add, will organize yours for the right price, Chris Reed. Lastly, senior leadership at Degrees, Jesse has been keeping all these people in line. Andy Parker made this happen. Andy's vision is what has made this conference possible. It's what made Degrees possible. It's not only his, but he articulates it and puts it out in the world and fiercely defends it. And so, final thanks to Andy Parker. Stand up, man. And apparently this is an entirely appropriate gift for you. I have no idea what it is. On that note, I have to say thank you all very much again. I have to remind you all that those of you who are part of the GeoMIP conference will be right back here tomorrow morning at what time? 9? Okay, but at some time in the morning, that doesn't seem 9 o'clock. So GeoMIP tomorrow, and now for the closing of the conference, I give the floor to the inaugural Saleemul Huq Prize winner, Trisha Patel.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I realized I came up here and took the frame and ran away because I panicked. I got really shy. So I actually would just like to say thank you. I'd like to thank the Degrees Initiative for the support from day one, and my teachers, my really amazing teachers at the University of Cape Town. Thank you, Romeric, for being a phenomenal supervisor. Yeah, thank you to Babatunde and Chris. Thank you so much. You guys are phenomenal, and I've learned so much, and I'm grateful for all of it. And I'm excited to engage more in SRM work. And I'm going to start with the final word now. I will keep it short and sweet because someone went over their time. Anyway, but I won't say names. So firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that this week has been something truly special. It has been the biggest gathering ever dedicated to SRM. And I think it's important that we take a moment to appreciate that's not simply a milestone, but it's also a signal that this conversation is growing, it's deepening, and it's reaching places that it hasn't before. SRM it's not the kind of topic most people plan to spend their careers on, I imagine. And frankly, it's not the kind of forum most of us wish needed to exist in the first place. So I think the fact that we are here, grappling with something so complex, so ethically fraught and full of unknowns, is a reflection of where we are globally. And if we're going to have these conversations, I'm really glad that it's happening like this. And what struck me this week is that despite that context, or perhaps because of it, the space is absolutely buzzing. There is something electric about being in a room with people from such different backgrounds: physicists, philosophers, lawyers, social scientists, civil society actors, and a few brave hearts who are still trying to explain the difference between SSP 245 and SSP 585 to their families and friends at home. I think everybody's path into this field is also so different. I personally stumbled into the field 5 years ago while studying climate change at the University of Cape Town. I was working on a research project funded by the Degrees Initiative, and here we are today. The Degrees Global Forum is here in Cape Town. That's a full circle moment I certainly did not anticipate at the beginning of my career. And I think it's a reminder that this is a field that's growing in both directions. It's growing deeper and it's growing wider. And it's really been such a treat to see old friends again and to meet people I've only known through research papers or who I've come across on LinkedIn threads. And also to be surprised by how thoughtful and generous and open the conversations have been, even when we've had disagreements, which we have had this week. Also, I do want to take a moment to shout out the silent force powering much of the dialogue throughout the week, Vida Coffee. There was a point where I began to suspect that those red takeaway cups might actually be the unofficial conference lanyards. And maybe the only thing preventing a total existential collapse by the middle of the afternoon. It's been equally lovely to see so many SRM-related initiatives get the space to introduce themselves during this week. Their work, grounded in regional realities or issue-specific themed lenses, will without a doubt help us all in asking sharper, more informed, and more relevant questions as we go forward. And how special to see this kind of global convening, not just interdisciplinary, but international, with researchers from more corners of the world and more layers of lived experience bringing their insights into the space. For me, the big takeaway has been this: if we are going to continue engaging with SRM seriously, then how we engage with people outside of this room, past our disciplines, and beyond our data sets matters just as much as what we're actually researching. And because the questions we're asking here aren't just technical, they're ethical, they're political, generational, And they'll most likely land in very different ways depending on where you are in the world, what systems you rely on, and how much choice you have in the matter. It has been such a privilege to listen to and learn from all of you this week, the old guard, the new voices, the skeptics and the advocates, and of course, the cautiously curious. And I'm really excited to see how the ideas, the collaborations, and the questions sparked here during this week will unfold over the next few years. A huge appreciation to the Degrees team. Thank you for the warmth, the smooth logistics, and for creating a space where disagreement could be generous, where ideas could be brave, and people could feel safe enough to speak their truth. So to close off, on behalf of the Degrees community, I'd like to thank each person here. Thank you for showing up with rigor, with humility, and with humor. Thank you for making space for honest dialogue, for imagination, and for the uncomfortable but necessary conversations. On that note, keep asking more informed questions, keep holding the line on justice, and now I hope everyone can get some sleep. And with that, I declare this conference closed, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2027. Thank you.